Another alert for you now, breaking in Washington, the Inspector General's report on Operation Fast and Furious just being released this hour. And moments ago, we got word that a top DOJ official just resigned as a result of the report. Jason Weinstein, the Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division, is resigning. We are told that the report concludes that he is the most senior Justice Department official who is in a position to stop this operation, which is a botched gun running sting run by the ATF out of Phoenix, but with Department of Justice cooperation. They had to get wiretaps and other things through the DOJ, and several people wound up dead in Mexico, not to mention an American Border Patrol agent on United States soil. They were originally hoping that they would track these weapons to Mexican drug cartel leaders. Instead, thousands of the guns vanished. 2 of them were found in 2010, where the American Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was shot to death. And so now what's happened is the Inspector General of the DOJ, who's been investigating this for several months, over a year, I believe, has come out with a report, and a top Justice Department official has resigned. William Lajeunesse, live from our Los Angeles bureau. He's been at the forefront of the reporting on this from the beginning. William, what do we know?
Well, remember, Megan, the Attorney General said he would only fire or discipline people until after the IG report was released, and that, of course, just happened moments ago. Well, here's what we know and here's what we don't. Jason Weinstein, as you said, he is out. Now let's look at let's go to this full screen of what we believe the report is generally also saying. It does place primary blame on the Phoenix ATF for not putting out public safety first, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona for a bad legal strategy. However, and the spin is out there on this, but it generally appears to exonerate Attorney General Eric Holder that he was not informed of Fast and Furious, or that he knew about the tactics involved, that the Criminal Division Chief Lanny Brewer, that he did not know of gun walking prior to the public finding that out, and finally that the Chief of Staff, who is now Gary Grindler, his Chief of Staff, as well as then he was the acting Deputy Attorney General Gary Grindler, that despite receiving a detailed briefing on Fast and Furious, including the number of guns that were going down to Mexico, that the term gun walking was never used, and therefore he cannot be blamed, if you will, for knowing about this stuff beforehand. Now, so we've already seen Jason Weinstein being disciplined. We are led to believe that in the next 48 hours there may be actions taken against those ATF officials in Phoenix who had primary responsibility about this. Number two, we believe there are several points that I think are going to be very important here. Number one, the IG kind of speaks in code, and their language is not always explicit. And you need to read this thing very carefully, word for word. You're not going to see a page that says, these guys screwed up, and here's how they should be penalized, if you will. Also, pay attention to 2 other points. And that, of course, is who signed off on this thing. Because, you know, many conservatives believe the administration hoped to use this as a way to justify stricter gun control laws. Democrats say that is not true. Secondly, exactly how explicit was Phoenix when it told Washington higher-ups what they were doing? You know, Phoenix ATF says, hey, we told our bosses everything. We gave them weekly reports. They knew how many guns were going down to Mexico, and they knew what showed up at crime scenes. So, you know, if we're to blame, so are the guys in front of us. That even buyers didn't even have cash, they didn't have jobs, and yet they were coming in with bundles of money to spend all this money on assault weapons. I believe the report also says, Megan, that it was wrong of the ATF to use the gun dealers like they did to encourage them to sell these guns, that was, while not necessarily illegal, definitely unethical. But there, it's 500 pages almost. We got a lot more coming out tomorrow.
All right, I want to let the viewers know that this has just been released now, 2 p.m. Eastern, so we are just going through it, as William points out, 500 pages. So as he goes through it, other news organizations are going through it as well, and we are just getting on the wires now. William, stay with me. A couple of headlines, and forgive me if you touched on these because folks were in my ear, but with respect to Eric Holder, no evidence that Eric Holder knew of the flaws. It appears that the report would, at least to this extent, exonerate Eric Holder. and then talks about Lanny Breuer, who you have on your full screen here. This guy runs the criminal division of the Department of Justice and has been very closely tied to Eric Holder and has been, to some extent, tied to the Fast and Furious investigation. Apparently, we are hearing, William, that he has been referred for possible disciplinary action. Can you comment on either of those two developments?
Well, I can tell you that before this report came out, Megan, the spin had already started. We were getting excerpts, if you will, that supported someone's contention. That, listen, we're innocent here. So a lot of things you're seeing already in the press are a result of someone giving them information, because you can't turn it around that fast. No one's reading 500 pages.
Yeah, but can you speak to Lanny Breuer?
Well, I can tell you that what we've been led to believe that Lanny Breuer, according to the report, or the excerpts that we've seen of the report, is that Lanny Breuer did not know about gun walking prior to the public being told about it. I will tell you, I just got this release from Chairman Darrell Issa. He says the IG report confirms findings by Congress that there is near total disregard of public safety, and that contrary to denials of the Attorney General and his defenders in Congress, that the investigation found that information in the wiretap applications approved by senior Justice Department officials did contain red flags showing reckless tactics and faults by the Attorney General and his inner circle. So there's a lot of information.
All right, this is just coming in as well. Thank you, William. I just want to say again, okay, so now this, again, we're going through the report. I'm literally looking on my BlackBerry at this moment. That is significant. If the head of the criminal division of the Department of Justice is being referred for possible disciplinary action, that's significant because the Department of Justice has sought to downplay Lanny Breuer's connection to Fast and Furious. That's his name. And yet his name comes up repeatedly in connection with this story. I haven't read the report. I'm just going by what I'm getting in my ear, according to other reports. Again, the other headline, that Eric Holder has been said to no evidence that he knew of the flaws that came in association with this program. Again, Lanny Breuer, Assistant Attorney General in charge of the criminal division. And apparently the report, according to our sister network publication, Wall Street Journal, that he acknowledged he should have done more to ensure that the tactics weren't used again. This is significant. Lanny Breuer's been at the center of this, and he's the highest-ranking DOJ official tied to it, although now we're told that it's a different guy, Weinstein, who is resigning. We're going to try to get to the bottom of this. We apologize to bring you the news sort of half-hearted, but we haven't been through the whole report, so we want to get you what we have, and we'll get back to that story momentarily once we have this stuff confirmed.